it is, and of course it's as dramatic as can be. This is the one and only Pegassi Infernus, one of the most exciting examples of supercar. It has exotic looks, is very fast, and is very expensive. The Pegassi Infernus has been around for a very long time indeed. It's been in a great number of GTA games, of course though in different forms. This one looks almost identical to the Pegassi Infernus found in GTA 4. The Infernus in GTA 4 was quite a hard car to drive. Shall we see what this one is like to drive? That's what we're here today to find out on GTA 5 car reviews. Let's discuss the statistics of this car. First of all, there's the price, $440,000, which may seem very expensive, and of course it is compared to a normal car, but it's actually surprisingly cheap if you compare it to other supercars. This is one of the cheapest cars in its class. Let's go on to its heart, the enormous 6-litre V12 that packs out 610 horsepower. It will go from 0 to 60 in just 3.1 seconds, making it the fastest accelerating car in GTA 5. Or rather it was. Now the fastest accelerating car is the Turismo R, which will do it in 2.8 seconds. This is a very fast car indeed. It will do 209 miles an hour flat out. 1 mile an hour slower than the Turismo R. So, as I said before, we've come out today to GTA 5 car reviews to find out what this car is actually like to drive. It may be very pretty, but what's it like to drive? Will it be as hard as we think it may be compared to the GTA 4 Infernus? All these questions will be answered presently. The first test we're going to do, same as always, is a top speed test. Let's see if we can get this Pegassi Infernus up to its top speed of 209 miles an hour. And we're also going to be testing its acceleration. Let's see if it really is the second fastest accelerating car in the game. Of course, we'll also test its brakes when we come to the end of the straight. Oh, there goes an aeroplane. Right, here in front of us is a nice wavy straight, perfect for testing out the Infernus's acceleration and top speed. Since this is a four-wheel drive car, there shouldn't be any wheel spin off the line. Let's find out. As I suspected, no wheel spin at all. Along with the overflod Entity XF, this is the only other four-wheel drive car. The acceleration is very good. This is the second fastest accelerating car in the game after the Grotti Turismo R. Approaching top speed now. And brake. As we can see, it's a very fast car and has very good acceleration, although the brakes actually leave quite a lot to be desired. They're perfectly usable, but this car actually has the worst brakes out of any supercar. Also, another thing that surprises me about this car is how tractor-like it is. This is basically a racing tractor, a truck with lots and lots of power. The second test we're going to do is to see how this racing tractor corners. Let's see if it has tractor cornering or decent supercar cornering. Let's take this first corner. In light corners like this, there doesn't appear to be any understeer. What about a tighter corner like this? Again, no, not really. I mean, there's a slight bit of understeer, but you don't even have to use brakes. You can just put the power off and it'll go around. You can use brakes for tighter corners like this. Yeah, there really isn't much understeer. Slight bit, but not as much understeer as the Entity. And again, any slight amount can just be dealt with by either turning the power off or using the brakes. Let's take some more of these nice corners. Let's see what our big fat Pegassi can do. As you see, if you use the brakes too much and hold them for too long, it does have a slight tendency to drift, and that's where you can start getting into trouble. So my recommendation is, if you don't want it sliding, turn the power off, but don't turn it too hard, and use the brakes sparingly. Use them carefully to make sure it doesn't slide on you. But this really is quite fun to drive. Let's take this 90-degree corner. Isn't really any understeer at all. I mean, the steering is quite heavy. This car has big, heavy steering, but there isn't really much problem with it. It's heavy steering, but it's perfectly usable, and there isn't that understeer that you get with the Entity. The Entity appears to have very twitchy good steering, and then it understeers, whereas this has fairly heavy steering, but as far as I've seen, there isn't really any understeer to speak of. But do remember that thing about the brakes. Don't hold the brakes too long, or it may indeed start drifting. Now, for our third test, we're going to see what this car is like when you get it sideways. Will it be controllable like most of the supercars, or will, like its aggressive looks, will it kill you? Let's find out what sort of drifter the Pegassi Infernus car is. Let's see if we can get it sliding, and let's see whether it will forgive us if we make any mistakes. First of all, let's try using the brakes. As we saw, it's surprisingly tail-happy with the brakes. Again, there you've got a little slide. You come in, sort of squeeze the brakes, and as the back starts to come out, floor the throttle so it doesn't go too far. Squeeze, turn, floor it, and then use opposite lock to bring it back in. It really is very tail happy with the brakes. What about power? Turn it hard and put the throttle on, and again you see, very tail happy car for a 4-wheel drive one. Which also means it's lots of fun. This is a very fun car to drift. Unfortunately, it's all too easy to get carried away in this car. You can be sliding along using drifts, using the brake and the power, and then you get a little bit too cocky. And that's where things can get a little bit scary. Things like that can happen. As you see, what happened is, unlike most cars, this car is surprisingly unforgiving. I pushed it too hard, and then no matter how much I used the opposite lock, it wouldn't come back round. Basically, with this car, you just need to know where its limits are and when to put the opposite lock on. It's not like other cars, which will always come back. If you push this a little bit too far, no opposite lock or skill will save you. It will spin out on you. So I've shown you how well the Pegassi Infernus can drift using the brakes and the power. As you can see, it's fairly good at drifting, you just need to know when to bring it back in, because it's not as forgiving as other cars. Let's see how it handbrakes. As we can see, this car is actually very good at handbraking. What I recommend you do, though, to make it easier for yourself, is to use the brakes and opposite lock to control the slide. Also remember, this is a very big, heavy car, so it's going to need lots of room. We can see that it handbrakes very well. But remember what I said, use brakes and opposite lock to control the slide, and it will need lots of room. Let's have another handbrake. Again, brakes and opposite lock brought that back round very nicely. Now it's time to see how fast the Pegassi Infernus will go around my racetrack. After it, we will put its time on the leaderboard to see where it comes out. Let's get on with it. Let's see how fast it can go around the track. Let's go and see how quick this enormous Pegassi can do the time in, do the track in. No wheel spin off the start because of the 4-wheel drive. As always, we'll take the corner on the most inside possible to make up time. hard here, a little bit wide. There's a nice straight here to open up the taps on that glorious Italian V12. Listen to its roar. Absolutely flooring it down this straight now. A little left turn coming up. Not far to go now. There's the finish line and across the line. And it did it in 1 minute 28.94. We'll compare that to the leaderboard in a minute to see where the Infernus will sit on the leaderboard. Okay, let's look at the lap times. As we can see, the Pegassi Infernus did the time in 1 minute 28.94, which makes it the second fastest car. As we can see, the Turismo did it 1:26.43, and it's actually practically identical in time. There's actually very, very little difference between the Turismo and the Infernus. The poor old entity is right there in last place so far, with 2 seconds slower. It's very odd that these two cars, who are so much slower, have managed to beat the entity. Of course, there are different circumstances within the race. For example, when I was testing these two cars, I may have just had a better day than I did with the entity, but still 2 seconds is quite a lot slower. Well, there you are, there's the Infernus's time, 1:28.94. And now, as always, I'm going to end with a conclusion. What do I think about the Pegassi Infernus? Well, earlier, on another previous show, I said that I thought the Grotti Turismo R was the best car in the game. And performance-wise, it probably is. But it's not my favourite. This car is by far my favourite supercar. Why is this? Well, for one simple reason. This is a car that you need to be a very, very good driver to really push it to the max. Sure, anybody can get in and drive it, but if you want to really experience this car and have a good old thrash, you need to be a pretty good driver. That's what I like about this car, the way it doesn't suffer fools. The way to drive it, you have to be an expert. This is a car that makes you feel better than everybody else. If you can drive this car, you can drive any car. And really, it doesn't take that long to get used to. All you have to do is drive it for a few times, get used to what it likes and what it doesn't like, and it really is a very, very fun car to drive. As I said, this is a car that if you really want to thrash it well, you have to have a certain amount of skill. This is a classic example of a driver's car. This is a car that says, well, I will let you come out for a drive and we will have fun together, but I want to get to know you first. I want to know whether you're worthy to drive me. If you're worthy enough to drive this car and you have a high driving skill, you will absolutely love it. But if you don't have driving skill, it will eat you alive. But that's not a bad thing. I would also recommend this car for beginners. Why, you ask? Because this car will turn any beginner into a master driver. All you have to do is get in this if you're a beginner, drive it a lot, and if you master it, you can drive any car. This car is the perfect machine for turning you into a racing driver. This really is an incredible machine. So much fun once you know what you're doing. That's my conclusion for the Pegassi Infernus. Until next time, I'm Scorby Nightfall on GTA 5 Car Reviews.